But shall we catch up now with our political editor, Christopher Hope, who, of course, has been speaking to the leader of His Majesty's most loyal opposition and, indeed, the Conservative Party, Kemi Badenoch. Chris, what did you find?
Yeah, Tom and Emily, welcome to the glorious Isle of Wight here. We've been speaking to Kemi Badenoch. She's been visiting here with Mel Stride, talking to locals about tourism, about small businesses, about the pressures they're all feeling at the moment. We asked her about migrants, and she was, of course, yesterday in Epping. She spoke and was very affected, clearly, by meeting local women there who are concerned about being safe. She told us that some women are not jogging in the local parks. They fear they might get attacked by these young men staying in the local migrants hotel there. So big concerns about migration and also about shoplifting. It turns out that she would step in if she saw some shoplifting taking place, if it was safe to do so. That's a talking point, I think, is this increasing idea of lawless Britain takes hold. We talked about post offices. The government is now looking at maybe cutting the 11,500 post offices across the country, a big worry for communities and GB News viewers later this year. She's against those plans, and also I asked her about her future at the next general election. But here's the full interview for you. Kemi Badenoch, thank you for joining us today on GB News in the glorious sunny Isle of Wight. It's great to see you. I want to take you to Epping. You were in Epping yesterday outside, or very near the Bell Hotel. You met people affected by that migrant hotel to find out what they were thinking. You talked about the issue of camps, moving migrants out of hotels into camps. Where would the camps be?
So I think the first thing that I want to say is that I went there because there was so much misinformation flowing around about what was going on, and I wanted to hear from the people of Epping directly, especially the mums, especially the parents. And I had mums and dads sitting there telling me what they'd been going through, and it was worse than I thought. Lots of low-level intimidation, people no longer jogging in the park because there are men lurking behind bushes, girls saying that there are people watching them as they go to school and come back. You know, when we had migrant hotels, you had men and women and children in there. What we're seeing is all male hotels. That is not what asylum seeking looks like. When we had the Ukrainian refugees coming in, it was mostly women and children. I think there's a problem when we're seeing all men turning up on these boats. And I don't think just plonking them in the heart of a community is the right thing.
Often in secret.
Yes.
That's part of the problem.
Exactly. So that Bell Hotel should close. We closed it. Labour reopened it, and it's now. And when we closed it, it had women and children in there.
Where will these camps be? We're on an island. The Isle of Wight could be a place.
We need to make sure that people aren't getting a pull factor here because they know they'll get free board, free, NHS, free, perks, luxuries even. Many of those hotels are actually quite expensive, and the local community loses the amenity. People I'm an Essex MP, and I've had constituents saying, well, we want to have our wedding, and the hotel's not available. So we need to find a solution. The worst possible thing is if we start moving them into private landlord owned accommodation, HMOs. That's the worst possible thing. We need to have something specially set up, whether it's camps or detention centres, and there's no point saying it's going to be expensive. It's expensive having them in the hotels, probably even more expensive.
To make life less comfortable.
Less comfortable, but also, more importantly, keep our community safe. Yep. Nobody should have to change where they jog or where they work because the government has plonked an asylum centre there. That's not right.
Of course, we're speaking on the day that 50,000 people have arrived here since last year's general election. You want them to be sent straight back to where they came from, mainly in the European Union. But that means pulling out of the European Convention on Human Rights. Would you commit to that now? Live on GB News.
Well, Chris, you know what our policy is, and that is that we're going to announce a conference, not just whether we're leaving or not, but how we do it. Simply saying we're going to leave with no plan, that's a big mess. But what's really interesting is that these numbers have just been going up and up. Labour scrapped the deterrence. There was a Rwanda plan, which we put to the election. Fine, we lost because it got lost in a lot of things, but Labour should never have scrapped it. The US is now using what we paid for in Rwanda to deport their migrants. That's terrible.
It's moving to crime now. Is Britain lawless? I mean, do you feel safe walking the streets of this country?
I do feel safe, but just because I feel safe doesn't mean that everybody else feels safe.
You've got a team around you,
yes.
to make you feel safe.
Well, indeed. But and one of the things that's gone wrong in politics is that a lot of people make laws that work for them and middle-class wealthy lives rather than the people out there. I've always stood up for the people who didn't have a voice. When I was being pilloried for complaining that rapists were being put in women's prisons, I've never been in a prison. I have never committed, a crime that would put me in prison. But I know that a lot of those people are vulnerable. I was speaking for them. And the job of politicians is not to make life comfortable for people like us. It's to speak up for those people who don't have a voice.
Walk in their shoes, essentially.
Exactly.
Should people step in to stop crimes? If you saw a shoplifter, would you step in and stop it happening?
Yes, after a very quick risk assessment, probably yes. That's the sort of person I am. And, I never liked the phrase have a go hero, because I think it's what people used to do as normal back in the day. But then we had the encroachment of bureaucracy. A lot of people are worried that if they step in, they'll get arrested. It should be the other way around. It can't just be the police who do all of the arresting. We used to have, we still do have a concept of a citizen's arrest, but a lot of people don't feel that the state will back them. They
Should the government be clear it will back them?
Yes, absolutely. That is what I stand for. We will never ever have enough police officers to do every single thing that needs policing.
Yeah.
We need the community as well to do that.
Are shoplifters scumbags?
I would not use that term, but if other people want to, that's
why not? Why is that word?
Well, quite a lot of them will be scumbags. Quite a lot of them will be scumbags. It's not a phrase that's in my lexicon. What really worries me is that the shopkeeper is the one getting the hassle. He has freedom of speech. Whether people like the word or not is irrelevant. That's not where the police should be focusing their efforts. They should be focusing their efforts on catching the thieves and the criminals.
They should display details, the faces of people who are suspected of being shoplifters.
Well, if they have caught people, I think that there might be a risk that they might do that for people who haven't done anything wrong. But the bottom line is that they are the victims in this, and we need to give them our backing and support them as much as we can, not create more hassle. It's incredibly hard running a business in the country today. You've got NI, employers NI, all sorts of problems on businesses. We back businesses.
Using the internet without a VPN, a virtual private network, is a bit like taking to the road without car insurance. All it takes is one unlucky moment to cost you a lot of cash. This video's sponsor is Private Internet Access. They are the VPN to help keep you safe. Click the link in the description below to find out why over 30 million people have downloaded PIA to protect themselves online. A virtual private network is an app that hides your IP address and helps keep your data private. When you're browsing the internet at home, you give up a large amount of data to businesses, to shops, and indeed to social media giants too. Hackers have the ability to steal your personal data with ease, including sensitive information such as passwords, keystrokes, and even your personal photos. Private Internet Access helps protect your personal data by encrypting your internet connection to keep your data out of the hands of cybercriminals. And it's not just hackers either to be concerned about. Information can be censored too. When Canada passed their C18 bill, social media giants decided to ban news content on their platforms. But PIA can protect your ability to consume the news and content you love. Private Internet Access is available for Windows users, Mac OS, Android, Linux, iOS, and you can use one PIA subscription to protect an unlimited amount of devices. And we've got a huge GB News discount for you too. Click the link in this video's description and you'll get a massive 83% off PIA. That's under £2 a month, the price of a coffee, and you'll get an extra 4 months completely free on top. Also, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee too. Visit piavpn.com/GB News to start protecting yourself digitally today.
Some parties are blaming migrants for crimes. Is that fair? Are some migrants from some countries more likely to commit crime?
I think there are statistics that show that certain people from certain countries are committing more crime. It doesn't mean that all migrants are committing crimes, but if nothing is done to tackle that, then what we'll end up seeing is a backlash, not even just against people coming on boats, but everyone who has an immigrant background. That's the worst case scenario, and the government needs to step in before we get to that place. But we should be honest about who is committing which crimes. What we know is that different groups often have overrepresentation for different crimes. Let's know about it so that we can do the right work for crime prevention, have a conversation that's honest. This is, as I always say, this is not a racist country, but we have managed to keep that by being very honest about what's going on, having transparency. If people don't know what's going on, they will start to believe conspiracy theory and misinformation, and then it'll be too late.
The Conservatives have fought the last 4 or 5 elections on a commitment to keeping the number of post offices in the country at 11,500. But the Labour government is now looking at that level, and it may be changed and maybe reduced. Will your party and you fight any plans to reduce that number of post offices from 11,500?
Chris, you'll remember I was the business secretary up until last year, and I kept that guarantee. I kept those post offices opened. I also got the criminal convictions for the sub-postmasters overturned. I've done a lot to support post offices in my constituency. It's a rural constituency. Rural areas in particular will feel the loss of post offices. The government should be looking at how it can fix the post office so it can provide a service, not just keep degrading it.
But keep that number.
I think that number is right. The population is increasing.
100%. Finally, just final leadership. I've got to ask you about leadership. You've done hundreds.
Yes, you always do.
I've got to. It's my job.
Yes.
You've done hundreds of interviews, over 100 visits since you became leader, but you're not budging your party's ranking in the polls. Why is that? Is it the party's fault? Is it your personal fault?
It's because it takes time. The last oppositions were 14 years, 13 years, 18 years. It's going to take some time. We've just been kicked out of office. People were angry with us. Now they're angry with Labour. Many people are looking to other parties. That's why they're doing well in the polls. My job is to show that the Conservative Party has changed. It's under new leadership. Immigration was one of the areas that we got wrong. We tried, didn't work. Now we have new, tougher policies, deporting all foreign criminals, disapplying the Human Rights Act, a deterrence, Rwanda plan, making sure that we actually control our borders. We have been too weak, I'm afraid. Labour is a lot weaker, and I want people to see that the Conservative Party's changed, and that's why I'm getting out there.
Now, at the weekend, Sir Geoffrey Clifton Brown, who's the treasurer of the 1922 committee of Tory MPs, he said to us that it depends on how you perform over the next few months on whether you'll fight the next general election. What would you say to Geoffrey Clifton Brown?
That I will be fighting the next election. The Conservative Party has gone through multiple changes in leader, and where it ended up was our worst historic defeat. What I'm doing is making sure that people understand what it means to vote Conservative again. It means low immigration, it means backing business, it means supporting families and having equality under the law, not two-tier policing or whatever. That's what we're about, and I need to make sure that people can see that there is only one party that's going to live within our means and not bankrupt our country. That's the Conservative Party.
Kemi Badenoch, thank you for joining us in the glorious sunny seaside at the Isle of Wight. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. There we have Kemi Badenoch talking to us earlier in a glorious sunny Isle of Wight there. And I think, she's going to last the course. We heard from Sir Geoffrey Clifton Brown, of course, the treasurer of the 1922 committee. He knows that letters can start going in of no confidence in the Tory leader from November, 1 year after she was elected by members to be the party leader. He says she's got some months to prove herself, and he can't say she'll fight the election. Well, Kemi Badenoch has hit back at that. She will fight the election, she says. She's the person to take it to the country. She hints there heavily at plans for the European Convention on Human Rights. We'll see, apparently, a plan to pull out of that if that's the decision they come to, and it seems that way, reading the mood music. So we'll see a detailed plan in October on withdrawal from the ECHR. That'll be a big moment, I think, in all politics this autumn. The policy of ECHR withdrawal, I think, is something we should be talking about a lot.
That will be a big moment. So she says they'll reveal whether they will or will not leave the ECHR, and crucially how they'll do it. We'll have to hold her to that. I'm sure you will, Christopher, if you're at the conference, which I imagine you will be.
But of course there is so much more to cover here, because Kemi Badenoch is trying to establish herself as a national figure, as an alternative government, talking about these serious measures, the serious way to do things, working through the detail of a policy rather than just making an announcement. She says, you can't just govern by announcement, you have to do the hard yards and the work. But you're right, Chris, I mean, it's not cutting through. Is she hoping that conference will be a turning point for that? I mean, what is the plan for the Conservatives if they continue to say things and the country continues to not listen?
That is a problem. I think the country has got Kemi Badenoch on mute at the moment. And how does she turn up the volume? How does she make people turn the TV up when she's speaking? Well, she's talking to us in the Isle of Wight. She's doing a lot of interviews, 100 visits in the past 10 months, over 200, I think, interviews. She's talking and talking, but how does she get the chance to be listened to? I think part of the problem she's got is that she, of course, was part of a government which is in power for 14 years, and people just aren't ready to listen to what they've got to say. Every time that Kemi Badenoch will attack the government, correctly so, on migration policy and small boats policy, for example, the Labour government, of course, goes back to the record of the last government and says, well, you had your chance and you failed to. So I think she's just plugging on. I think the point of Robert Jenrick do any better. He's very good at opposition politics, very good at making videos, making cut through online, but really, would he budge the dial any more than Kemi Badenoch is? And into that void, of course. So she's saying things which are quite interesting. She would step in if she saw some shoplifting, for example. She will oppose those plans that could see thousands of post offices potentially closed if it goes through from this government. She's trying to find areas to have a go at the government on, but right now she's struggling to be listened to, and we're seeing that in the polls.
Fair to say a slightly more tentative approach to crime as well. You asked her whether she feels safe. She said she does feel safe on the streets of Britain, but accepts that some people do not. She doesn't seem to be going down the whole lawless Britain route, as Robert Jenrick and Nigel Farage are.
No. No, she didn't, and very clearly said that's not the case. I mean, I think it's more of a low-level issue of lawlessness. Mothers, the women of Epping, talking about how they are not going running in the local park now because they fear about these young men being housed in that local hotel. There's the unknown nature of who's being put in hotels, the secrecy by the Home Office about when they open a new hotel. That is driving, I think, the lot of the concern from local people. Were the government more open, they might find people being more open, although upset about it. I do think the government's facing a crossroads on the issue of migration because they are going to disperse them into HMOs, into houses of multiple occupation. The Tories and Reform UK are saying, why not build campsites, Nightingale buildings, temporary structures elsewhere in the country and put them there. That is a choice that's being made, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, Kemi Badenoch saying she feels safe, but of course she's recognising there are concern about crime across the country.
Well, perhaps something else she could commit to is better broadband across the country and indeed a wider rollout of 5G. You have been cutting up a little bit, Chris, but we have been able to get the vast majority of what you've had to say. Thanks for joining us live from the Isle of Wight.